G'day, I'm Yvonne from Pree Designs Papercrafting. Thanks for stopping by my YouTube channel or having a look on my Facebook page or maybe even Instagram. Today I'm going to start the new month of August showcasing in my One Bundle 4 Ways the Rolling Waves bundle of products. So I'll flip the camera around and we'll get started. Now, the Rolling Waves is from, as I mentioned, the March online exclusive product list. It's this little bundle here. You can buy the pieces separately, but of course you save 10% if you get them together. This is a fabulous beach tone stamp set and die set. It's probably my most favourite of all the ones Stampin' have put out. I just absolutely love it. And living in Australia, it is perfect for those cards, especially the masculine ones that everyone seems to get stuck on. So in the product offering, you've got a gorgeous stamp set. This is the Rolling Wave stamp set, and that's it there in actual real life. And then you have the die set, and I always put my dies on magnetic sheet. Then I also, hopefully you can see that, then I also like to make up for my little book, showcasing the dies, and then if they've got matching stamps, what the stamps look like. When I first saw this die, I had no idea what it was. Oops, there you go. You haven't got the reflection now. But it's actually, you cut two, and it actually makes a beach umbrella. Pretty cool. Old-fashioned beach umbrella. Now we'd have the cabanas, but this is what I grew up with in the 70s. All right, so when I design a card, I have a rough idea in my head and then I simply like to play. So I'm going to start off with a card base of a thick basic white. This is an A5 sheet, and then I'm going to have my base layer or my mat as basic beige, and I've cut that at 14.3 by 10 centimeters. Then I'm going to play with some of the stamps. Now, my idea for this one is actually very loosely based around this card that I made as a class card. Sorry, I'll just take that out. So this one is, I sell my class instructions for 10 Australian dollars, but it is a shaker card with sand in it. So I have based this design loosely around that one. So the first thing I want to do is start off with stamping. So I'll just take off my plastic layer, and I'm going to start off with some sand. Now, when I get a new stamp set, I make a template out of the stamps. I leave them on the hard plastic, I ink up in black, and then I stamp on a piece of copy paper that's not big enough, and then I attach the copy paper to the hard plastic and put all the stamps back in place. That way I know that I haven't lost a stamp when I'm packing away. So I'm just deciding here, I'm actually going to stamp in the basic beige. The crumb cake that I'd already got out might be just a little bit too dark. So, and this is, the basic beige is the cardstock colour that I've got. So just inking up and stamping to give a sand effect in the basic beige. And then you can see I've got a little bit left here, so add a little bit more colour and a little bit more over this side, add a little bit more colour there. Right, so that's my starting base. Then I want to try and make an illusion of water. So I thought I would do some clear Versamark over the top of the sand. You know when the waves roll in, and they roll in and you get the water over the sand, it looks pretty cool, a little bit frothy, and then it rolls back out. That's my idea in my head. Not sure if it'll work because I haven't actually already done this card. I like to play as I go along. So I'm going to bring in my Versamark, clear embossing powder, and Versamark this piece. Right, so my Versamark's here. I've got my embossing buddy, which I would just run across that inked image. I may get a little bit of extra residue over the top. Bring in my Versamark, ink up my stamp, And I'm stamping over the top of some of the sand because, as I said, I want that illusion of the water rushing in over the sand and then rushing back out over the sand. And then I put my clear, all of my embossing powders in little containers to make it easier. So just going to put some clear embossing powder on that side, some clear embossing powder on that side. So you can maybe, yep, you can just see that on the video. Okay, I'll go away and I'll heat set that. Okay, so that has achieved the look that I want. It sort of gives a bit of a watery, a wet look. All right, so that's a success so far. Then I want to put a piece of designer series paper. Now, believe it or not, this is from the Velvet Meadow. I wanted to find a really pale piece of designer series paper. So I've chosen this piece here. So this is a Velvet Meadow. I could have chosen this piece, but I've picked up this one instead. So that's probably a little bit too long. I'm just going to trim that, and I'm going to trim it so that I've got a little bit of a border around. It was 5 centimeters by 13.8 centimeters. That's perfect. And then I'm just going to adhere that down. You can see the other side of the designer series paper. So this is the more plain part where all the floral detail was down the bottom. And that is why I chose this piece, because I wasn't wasting any beautiful paper on the other side. All right, so that actually looks crooked, but I'm sure it's just because of the stamp. All right, so that's that piece. Then I'm going to bring in some of my beautiful dies. I want to make an illusion of the waves. So I'm bringing in some basic white, and I'm also going to bring in some, sorry, it's not basic white, it's balmy blue and basic white. I'm going to cut the big die out of the balmy blue, and then I will cut these two dies, which will give me the illusion of the waves and the foam on the waves. I'll cut these two out of basic white. All right, so I'm back with my pieces. So here's all the dies. These dies are just stunning. I just love them. We're very fortunate, only just over a K from the beach as the crow flies. So this, as I said, this is probably my favourite beachy tone set that Stampin' Up! Have ever put out. Okay, so now I want to make my wave idea. So I'm going to put this piece down first because this is as if the waves are crashing over, and I'm going to use my mini, just trying to make sure I'm still in screenshot. I'm going to use my mini dimensionals. And as you can see by the state of the dimensional paper, I use every single bit of dimensional on that pack. I don't waste any of it. I need a tiny piece for down here, so that's going to be too big. I will just cut one of the edge pieces into a couple of little strips. Oops. And then I'll layer this one on. Yeah, that'll do. And then this one is going to go over the top of this. And then this, you can see it matches the outline of that piece. I'm actually now going to put it onto my card base, and you can see here I've got a little bit of overstamping or a bit of colour, so I'm going to use that rather than have that on the inside. I'm going to use that as my card front, because then my mat is going to cover that and nobody will know it's under there except you and me. I'm using my big dimensionals just because this is a little bit warped from being heat embossed. Bin. Okay, come on. All right, that's better. Right, so now I'm going to put that onto my card front, as I said, covering up that little mark, and I want an even border all the way around. And that looks great. Okay, so now I'm going to, out of some crumb cake, I'm going to cut out these gorgeous seashells and just die cut that. So I'll go away and do that with my die cut pieces. They are just gorgeous. And then I have a super, super skinny piece and my crumb cake ink, and hopefully I'm going to have a nice successful stamping experience, and I'm going to get this stamp perfectly on that super, super skinny piece of cardstock, and it's going to be straight. Yes, I like it when a bit of stamping works out. I was trying to do it as a really small piece because then I find I actually get the stamping straighter rather than have a bigger piece and then having to cut it down, which is, I find that a little bit harder. So that is hoping your day is perfect. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop this on my card, and then I'm going to, or maybe I'll layer my shells on first. I'll put some dimensionals on the back and then we'll have a play and see how everything sits together. So this is a super, super simple card. It's got some beautiful texture with the flat stamping as the sand, and then you've got the clear embossing as the water, the crushing in along the waves. And then you've got those layers of waves. And then the final piece we're putting in are these little shells. So again, I need a couple of little tiny pieces. They might be a bit big, so I'm just going to cut this end off as well. A couple of little squares for these tiny little starfish here. And one here. All right, so now it's time to play and see where all my shells are going to fit onto my card. Bring the card back down. Now I always start with the largest piece, so I'll start with the biggest starfish in the corner and then start building around. Again, as I said, this is such a beautiful stamp set and die set, and when I checked last night, it is still available in Australia, but I wouldn't leave it too much longer if you absolutely love it and decide it's a must for your craft room. And if you haven't already got a demonstrator, I have my link to my shop, or my details to my shop, and also I'll have a list of the products I've used in my video, and you can always click on that and that will take you direct to my online store if you are interested. But you might have other things in your craft stash that you could reproduce this with some of the things that you've already got. All right, so that is that one. And then, of course, I've got to use all these gorgeous starfish because I've already stamped them or die cut them, so I can't put them to waste. Might go up the beach, so to speak. Up here. I haven't pushed these down hard, so I can still play and move them around. Yeah, over here. Maybe, I think up here. One hanging down and partly under the words. So that is my card. Super, super easy. A little bit of nice detail. And then I'm going to bring in a envelope and an insert. I have already stamped with the little starfish stamps. Pop a little bit of adhesive on the back of the insert. Now I just use a 1/4 sheet of copy paper as my insert, and like my first mat, I cut it down to 14.3 by 10 centimetres, and that just finishes off the card. All right, so thank you very much. This is my first card using the rolling waves, 1 bundle 4 ways. Stay tuned next week for a completely different design using the rolling waves. Thank you.